So much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Earrings Off Podcast. Today, Lou and I are diving into one of the most complex and fascinating aspects of human relationships, female friendships. What makes them thrive? What causes them to fracture? And how do we navigate the intricate web of connection, separation, and reconciliation? We're thrilled to be joined by Susan Barash, a distinguished author and scholar who has spent decades exploring gender dynamics, relationships, and the hidden truths that shape our interactions. Her latest book, Estranged, peels back the layers of friendship, the loyalty, the betrayals, and the stories of how bonds are either mended or forever broken. Susan's work has been featured in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Elle, Marie Claire, and more. She's been interviewed on CNN, Good Morning America, NPR, and countless national platforms. With her extensive expertise, she offers a window into the emotions, conflicts, and resolutions that define the friendships of women everywhere. So, grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, settle in, and get ready for an insightful conversation that may just change the way you view friendships. Let's get started. Hello, Earrings Off family. Today, we have a good one. We have with us Susan Barash. Susan, welcome to Earrings Off.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, yeah. I'm so interested to hear about this book and the history behind it.
Not only the book, but the topic. We cannot wait to get into this, Susan.
Yes. So, Susan, you've been investigating how women are positioned in contemporary culture for several decades. What inspired you to write this book now?
Well, actually, I had begun this book and had started my interview process 7 years ago when my mother died. And I realized what friends were really there for me and what friends surprised me by not being there.
Wow.
And I expected them to be. And I interviewed the first 25 women because for all of my nonfiction, this is my 14th nonfiction women's issue book, I interview between 150 and maybe 200, 250 women.
Oh.
Very diverse population in terms of race, ethnicity, level of education, religion, social strata, all across the country, you know, from cities to suburbs to small towns, rural areas. And so when I interviewed them 7 years ago, the first group, before my agent said to me, you know, you have to get your 3 novels. They're written by my pen name, Susanna Marin, in first. So I put it aside. I was hearing women say, sure, I've estranged from a friend, but it's been really hard for me. And I feel like I'm the loser. I feel ashamed. I feel like that I failed somehow. By the time I went back to it 2.5 years ago to complete the next 125 women and get this group of women together, the things had really changed. And I think that COVID made us really look deeply into what matters and doesn't for us. I think the movement had a ripple effect. And women were saying, you know, life is too short. Even young women, because the women are between 20 and 80 in this study, they were saying, you know what? It's hard to let go of this best friend or this closest friend, however they described her in this dyad, but I am finished. This is what happened, and I am better off and more empowered on the other side.
Wow. And so, Susan, how did you find the women? Where did you find
Well,
them?
years ago, when I first started, looking into how women really feel versus how we, the faces we wear and how we appear in public life, not private life. I used to call cousins and friends all across the country and ask, this is so long ago, and ask them to put ads up in like Women's Wise and gyms. And I would advertise in newspapers across the country. Things have changed so that I now just, I put ads in social, in Craigslist. I do it online.
Okay. Okay.
So very different. And of
Yeah.
course, I network. So
Yeah.
if a woman tells me a story, I say, do you know someone who might also talk to me?
Wow.
And that's a great thing to do. Mhm.
Okay.
So it's
Wow.
just you meet so many. The women I have spoken with intrigue me.
The women that you spoke with were from their 20s to their 80s. Were you surprised they felt as they did at every age?
I was, and I also understood it because I think as females in a very patriarchal culture, that we go through all these stages in life trying to survive, trying to prevail. And if life is a pie for women, the female friendships are a very big part of it. Romantic partners, spouses, they come, they go. We know that. If you have children, they grow up.
Mhm.
But women, we live a long time, much longer than, in the past. And we get to try new things, move around, meet new people, but we are deeply invested in these female friendships. When we're let down, when we estrange, it's almost as if we didn't learn from when we were 20 and we had our first breakup. And then, I talked to women in retirement communities who made new friends and were very disappointed and
Wow. Okay.
estranged.
Yeah.
And then young women and all along the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what about some stats? Can you share some of those with us?
I can. So 88% of the women said to me that they'd had a problem
Okay.
with a female friend in this study. Remember the 150, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a questionnaire at the end of the book, so another 111 women from the questionnaire. And 75% of the women said that it's harder to leave a female friendship, a very close, the closest female friendships, than to leave a romantic partner. Over 60% said that someone had done something terrible, the friend had done something terrible to them. The other women, I'll just say this, in the questionnaire alone, 80% of those women told me that they responded by saying that they thought that a female friend would be someone who could really support whatever they go through. And 79% said that when they estranged, they found it was a positive experience for them.
Really?
I know, that's just incredible.
Right.
That is
Wow.
incredible.
It's such a bold but necessary step.
In the book, you identify 7 classic scenarios and how they affect us. How did you create the types? Tell us about that.
After interviewing the 150 women and getting all the responses to the questionnaire, I looked at what kind of categories, if you will, they fell into. What kind of scenarios were common to enough of the women that they became the chapters. And again, what's really applicable is the idea that you could be 35 and having a very similar experience to someone 55. Because women really want to mirror, in our friendships, we often like to mirror our own experience. So for instance, I interviewed women who were 35 years old and had been besties, and they were both single women in the city with great jobs. And then one got married, already a bit of tension. The other, not close to that. Then had 2 children, moved out of town, and wanted to talk with other young mothers about childcare, daycare and nursery school. And this woman was still in the city doing what the two had shared a while ago, but they no longer shared that journey. So, both sides complained, she doesn't understand, she doesn't have time for me. And, both sides felt the difference.
In the relationship. Wow. Okay.
Your interviewees expressed their trepidation at leaving an unhealthy friend despite how unsatisfying or troubling it has been. Why is this?
Because in this culture, we're all taught and encouraged to be best friends forever.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
true.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are, and it's not always the case. There is an expiration date on these friendships.
Mhm.
And in the book, it's not just interviews, but I also did a lot of research.
Okay.
And I also looked at pop culture. So I just want to mention that Margaret Mead, the late great social anthropologist,
Mhm.
this could be urban legend, but is fascinating to me. The first part, the second part is absolutely documented. And that is, she was interviewed, and the journalist said to her, this is the urban legend part, said, how do you feel about your 3 failed marriages? And she said, you mean my 3 successful marriages? Women need to understand, this is the part that's quoted, that marriage is terminal. And I think that we could take that and apply it to female friendships too. We're taught it's forever, but we know that romantic relationships and marriages, are disappointing and end. But we've been taught that our friendships should never end. And a lot of women, even young women, thought it was historical. We grew up together, our mothers were friends, or, we were roommates in college, or we met when we were both engaged, or our children went through school together. All these reasons it's obligatory to stay, not leave. And what Margaret Mead said about terminal applying to marriage can really be applied here as well. That we just have to understand that not everything lasts forever.
This is such a shift because, Susan, like you said, we're taught that the friendships should last forever when we know as individuals we're not the same now. That, we're not the same person that we were maybe at 10. And things change. We have different experiences, different goals, different priorities. It's not only a physical move, we change, we evolve. And so sometimes that's the tension in believing that I have to hold on to this person for the rest of my life.
Growing apart is definitely one way that we end up not being with these friends anymore.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, we end up with friends who are mirroring us in our experience at the time. But there's another aspect to this study that is important, and that is when your friend has really betrayed you. And you learn about it, and you learn about it, and you say, that's it, that's the deal breaker.
Yeah. Wow. Susan, there are sister stories in the book as well, one per chapter. What are the differences between sister breakups and best friend breakups?
There's a difference. And I mean, the heartache of it and the longing for that person, even when it doesn't work anymore, is very similar. But what's different is that our sisters are assigned to us. They're part of the family, and there's the mother and the whole family's, sort of hovering over a kind of split with a friend, I mean, with a sister, and the tension it causes throughout the family and upsets a mother greatly. A few of the sister stories referred to how upset the mother was. But our friends are self-selected and they're chosen. And we really emphasize that in being close and when there's a breakup. That, we're fictive family. We create them as family. But the reason I wanted to put one sister interview per chapter is because years ago, I did a whole book/study on sisters, and it was called Sisters Devoted or Divided. And the sisters who were close, who were devoted, talked about how they had their sister or sisters and they didn't need to be so close to other women as friends. And then if they had a problem and they were divided, they longed for that closeness that
Yeah.
they were missing. And then in this book, so many of the women said to me, oh, we're so close. People think we're sisters. We're not just best friends. So I wanted to take a look at the difference, and it really is about a familial situation.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about sister breakups. That breaks my heart. I don't have a sister, but if I had one, I think we'd be very close.
Oh, yes. I mean, how lucky to be a sister, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's really true. It's a buffer. It's a
yeah.
real buffer in the world.
I have lots of friends who have such close relationships with their sisters, and I'm so envious of that. And I'm so lucky that I get oftentimes included into some of their things, but it's a beautiful thing to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sisters are very special. And,
Hmm.
but you know, the way we hold the bar very high for our female friends, the same is said about sisters.
Yeah.
There really is a lot of expectation that the sister will,
Yeah.
carry you through.
Can you cite several reasons for an estrangement between women friends?
Well, I mentioned betrayal before, and we had
Yeah.
started to talk about the categories. So the idea that your friend has betrayed you, which is definitely something I look at throughout the book, is a very big deal because we trust these friends. We
Mhm.
really share our secrets. And so we really expect them to be loyal. So a betrayal could be, of course, the one we all know about, and that is your friend in college steals your boyfriend, or
Yeah.
but as the years go on, your friend seduces your
Yeah.
fiance, the years go on, you're now divorced and have a new squeeze, and your friend seduces him. Okay, we've seen
Mm-hmm.
that, and it is, of course, in the book. But
Mm-hmm.
other kinds of betrayal too, spilling a secret
Mm.
and you've really
Yeah.
shared it, and it's
Yeah.
hurtful. I have one story in the book that's just amazing. And it is a she said story. So I just want to interrupt myself to say that in the book, per chapter, I have one really long story where I was able to interview both sides.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Women. And that was really incredible, where in a few cases they were able to mend it, because the subtitle is Mended or End It, but some of them were still estranged. So that was really quite surprising to
Mm-hmm.
hear that, what in one story, one of the friends had spilled a secret that was very serious, no spoiler. And
Wow.
so besides betrayal, if the friend lies, money, say you
Yeah.
split out the same and then one friend makes a lot of money
Yeah.
or marries someone
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of money, but her lifestyle changes and she really wants to be with the theory of homogamy, like with like, that really is how
Yeah.
we're friends. Like I said, we
Yeah.
reflect each other and sort of leaves you behind and is a hierarchical friend where she's really looking for new friends who seem more important than you. That's a big
Mm.
disappointment. And then the friend who disparages you. Women are really, we all know this, we're really looking to be respected,
Mm-hmm.
really looking to be equals. So if the give and take isn't equal, if the way that your friend treats you is way too cavalier and she doesn't take you seriously or respect your needs, in the end, those friendships don't last. There's
Mm-hmm.
an estrangement.
Susan, you write about the estranged who is dropped by her friend and the estranger who instigates the end of the friendship. Let's talk a little bit about how that plays out. How does that look?
So the estranger is the person who precipitates the
Mm-hmm.
estrangement. She is the one who says enough, and she does it several ways. Either she ghosts her friend because women don't really like confrontation or conflict,
Mm-hmm.
and she just distances herself till the message is there, or she just disappears. And the estrangee is the person on the receiving end, and she's the one who is pushed aside. But what was curious about it to me was that some estrangees, even the one who was pushed to the side, said, you know what? I'm rethinking it. Maybe it's for the best. So much drama happened in this friendship, so much heartache. Maybe it's better.
Interesting. Your research uncovers disappointment and betrayal in female friendships. Then, in a new twist, estrangement often follows. What are your thoughts on this step?
My thoughts on
This step of,
the step. Yes, this measure definitely happening. Really, you're right, a new twist, really trending and striking in the sense that women feel so much stronger for it. I'm not saying they're not aggrieved. I'm not saying they don't miss the friend, because there are all these stages to leaving a very emotional relationship. But on the other side, the women feel much stronger, much more self-aware, and also ready for new experiences that are healthier.
Susan, what is the takeaway, your conclusion?
My conclusion is that being able to estrange from an unhealthy female friendship is a very strong step and a very good way to reclaim yourself and to have a healthy, as I said earlier, healthier lifestyle going forward. The idea that there's so much tension or stress in these friendships is really not good for your mental health. And I look at that, and I look at a lot of studies, and there's this UCLA study on female friendship that says that when they work well, this is a very big landmark study that I reference in the book, that you end up really feeling healthier. But the opposite is true based on my findings. If the friendship is really, really a stressful situation, then estranging is the right way to go. It's a form of self-preservation.
Makes a lot of sense. Susan, this has been a great conversation. We've reached the last of the questions. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I wanted to thank you for having me on your show. It's
Yeah,
delightful
sure.
with both of you. And just to say that, the book's available in indie bookstores and bookshop.org and Amazon, Barnes and Noble online. And if you go to my website, I love to hear from readers, so I'm always available that way.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Take
Take good
care.
care.